Black Widow was directed by Cate Shortland and stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz, and follows directly after the events of Captain America Civil War as Natasha Romanoff is on the run, seeking vengeance against the man that basically turned her into a killing machine all those years ago as she hunts down the head of the Black Widow program. Guys, this is a movie that has been pushed back and pushed back due to the current pandemic that we are in. This was originally supposed to be the start of Phase 4, but because of it being pushed back constantly, a lot of the shows on Disney Plus had to take up the slack and become the first entries of Phase 4. And so going into this movie, knowing that this was originally supposed to be the first film, it makes a whole lot more sense. Now, I will say that I was not necessarily looking forward to this film, and not for many of the reasons that some people are saying. The fact that, why are we telling Black Widow's story when, she died in Endgame? Why do we need to do this? It's a little too late to tell her story now that she's gone. And I do understand all of those concerns. I do have those, in fact. However, I just wasn't that interested in the idea, really. None of the trailers really excited me like many of the other Marvel properties have in the past, but I was going to give this film a benefit of a doubt, and I sat down and I really enjoyed myself. So right up front, I will say that because this movie was originally intended to be the first entry in Phase 4, it makes a whole lot more sense because of it dealing with Black Widow, a character that previously died and is finally getting her story. And I will say that, yes, it is a tad too late. This is probably something that should have come out years prior, when people were first talking about a Black Widow film during, Phase 1 and Phase 2. But nonetheless, we have this movie here, and I think this is a pretty solid action film, as well as a good spy thriller. I think what makes this movie work for me is honestly the character work and the dynamic between them and the actors themselves. Scarlett Johansson plays Natasha Romanoff expertly. She's really good in this role, and I think that this movie gives Natasha a little bit more meat to chew than previously in other films. I think she is a much more complex character than we originally thought, and I think the film displays that. I also like other performances such as Florence Pugh, who really steals the show in this movie. She is by far probably my favorite character, and I love her interactions with Natasha throughout the film. I think she's really funny and witty, and they really do have this really awkward kind of sister relationship that I think really is the heart and soul of the film. Also, other actors and actresses in the film, such as David Harbour and Rachel Weisz, show up as these kind of father and mother figures to these two characters, and they are both wonderful. Especially David Harbour, who is probably the funniest thing in this movie. He has so many great moments, and he's just really playing it up, and is definitely a little bit more on the hammy side, but it's still fun nonetheless. The action scenes I also felt were really fun and visceral. They're not really extremely well choreographed like something like The Winter Soldier or Captain America Civil War, but they are fun nonetheless. Every action scene had my heart pounding. It was tense, it was fun, and a lot of that was brought through with the very good score that I found to be really well done in this film. It's really action-packed and, tense when it needs to be, but it can be extremely haunting and heartfelt, especially during the earlier moments of the film. And the first 10 or 15 minutes of this movie is some of the best stuff I have seen from the MCU, and just really surprised me by going to some really dark places, and I hoped that the rest of the film would keep in tone with those first 10 or 15 minutes, which is basically setting up backstory to Natasha when she was a child. And it's just expertly done. It's extremely tense, raw, and just really, really entertaining. It was like I was watching an episode of The Americans. It was that tense and just felt in line with that. And I hope the rest of the movie would have been that, but we eventually devolve into what the MCU is, just, fun, lighthearted, but I think that the film does focus a lot more on character. That the other MCU movies really haven't, but I have been seeing a lot of this in Phase 4 so far with the Disney Plus shows, where they've been really focusing on the characters themselves. People like Wanda, or Falcon, or Loki. It's really, a character study in a way, looking at these characters and deconstructing them in a way, seeing what makes them tick. And I think that's an interesting way that Phase 4 is making itself very different from what came before, and it makes me excited for what comes after. Now, let me get into some of my flaws with the movie that kept me from just absolutely loving this film to death, because I really did enjoy this film. But I found the villains rather weak, particularly Ray Winstone's character and the villain character of the Taskmaster. Now, Ray Winstone, I love when he is in any film. He just really is great in anything he does. However, I feel like he just doesn't get that much to do. He's often behind a closed door, and we rarely see him throughout the film. And when we do, it's just kind of basic. He's a basic bad guy that really doesn't have anything going for him at all. Also, the Taskmaster is a cool idea. I love the fight scenes with the Taskmaster, and I think that the costume is really cool too, but the Taskmaster itself just isn't that interesting, and really, by the end of the movie, I didn't care about any reveals with that character or anything that was really going on with those villains. They just didn't really feel like a threat to me. I also found that the film really slows down near the middle of the film. The movie was really picking up steam throughout the first half of the movie, but we get to this middle portion of the film that I think just slows down a little too much. It's a little bit too much just standing around and talking, and it's sad because I do like these talking scenes on their own. I think the film is at its best when it's about its characters and it's just them sitting and talking in a room, seeing them play off of each other and learning about each other. However, it does slow down the film quite a bit. I also felt that David Harbour and Rachel Weisz's characters, though they felt so integral and important at the beginning of the film, really just, in the end, didn't have that much to do, and that was rather disappointing to me because I did enjoy their characters. But there was nothing in this film that I just outright hated. This is still a fun, action-packed movie that has some heart to it and really delves into the character a little bit more than we had seen in previous outings. And it was just fun seeing Scarlett Johansson return to this role for probably one last time, since, well, the character itself is no longer with us. But I found this movie just a blast. It was really great going to a theater to watch this film on the big screen. I enjoyed pretty much the entire film. It had its slow moments, some disappointing characters with some disappointing villains, but nonetheless, I think this was not exactly a home run for the MCU, but it was a solid film that I'm definitely going to be revisiting. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm going to give Black Widow a 7 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. What did you think of Black Widow? Tell me in the comments section below. This is a film that might be divisive for some people. Some people probably aren't going to care for it just because of the fact that, why are we telling this story now? But I found the film, nonetheless, to be very entertaining and enjoyable, and I'm ultimately glad I saw it. But anyway, guys, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.